interesting, I suppose we just start. Angela mentioned venues, Ellie mentioned venues, this week that what it was, that the Kino closed down and we've got the event centre looking for 12 million, So basically, to me, that doesn't make the slightest bit of a difference in that, look, the Cork needs the event centre. Through that, more people get jobs in the industry. When I started, I came to Cork in 1988, and I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7 years later, Skull Stiff on Native started. And originally, I suppose the first name that came out was a girl called Sinead Loden, who, did some songwriting, got a bit of a name. She was signed by, I don't know, was it Sony or someone at the time. But at the time, to many people in the city centre that were involved in music, like literally there was handfuls, as Angela spoke about, there was herself, Jim Marsh, there was posses like Sultan's Ping, Frank and Walters, there was Sir Henry's, there was a bar called The Liberty. Probably during the course of the next few minutes I'll mention venues, they're all gone. The thing is that, in a city like this, if we had a scenario, the point being of Stiff on Naifeh is 20 years later, Mick Flannery went there, O Emperor went there, Burr Quinn, who's an engineer with John Grant, Divine Comedy, they all went there. So the whole process of what almost Angela and people like that started in the music co-op 20 years ago, you start seeing the evolution of it now, and you start seeing people actually, I know quite a number of people that actually are making a full-time living. Probably not, the best living in the world, but, they're keeping going by music. That's one development since I came 29 years ago to Cork. I mean, in that time, again, when, back then, you had Sir Henry's. I mean, I lived in Galway, I went to boarding school in Dublin, but like the only one thing, or two things I knew about Cork was Jimmy Barry Murphy and Sir Henry's. And that, and I mean, you're all quite young, but like back then, literally there was The Enemy, Hot Press, and Dave Fanning on 2FM at the time, or in Dublin there was Early Pirates, and that was the music scene. I mean, you had similar in Cork, you had I can't remember the names. CCLR, and there was the one your man Romanos was on. I can't remember what that was. But anyway, there was pirate stations, and that was it. There was a much smaller outlet. Now, I mean, interestingly, I'll go off on tangents. That's the way I do. But like, basically, the whole thing of punk rock was DIY, do it yourself. Back in the day, you had to follow channels. So if you're in Ireland, you needed to get through to Hot Press or certain magazines. Like, for example, the Sultans and the Franks bypassed Dublin because they felt there was a bias, and they got signed by London labels, Now, basically, going back to something that Ian spoke about very early on, you can have a studio in your bedroom and make a tune that basically the world can listen to. And following the channels of what actually Angela spoke about, of, there has to be an efficiency. You have to get your music out there. You have to be able to take criticism. You have to have quality control. Do you know what I mean? Hey, you made a song. It's like, great, well done. Is it any good? You know what I mean? Who's to say? You find the people that succeed work the hardest, right across the board. It's not just luck. There are elements of luck, but, you make your own luck at the same time. So, I suppose on the independent music front, there's a friend of mine who's, I'm 46 now, he's, 10 years older than me, and he speaks about when the punk scene started in Dublin. And there was, again, now there is venues now, people have PAs and lights and stuff. Like this is, progressive by the standards of 30 years ago. But equally within that there was an innocence, and on top of that there was the fact that the DIY, go do it. You don't, as much as there's manuals and you should do X, Y, and Z, there is basic principles and simple things. Write good music and try to get it out there for people to hear. So, like, going back to the point of that, as Cork bands or bands from anywhere, it's like getting your music onto platforms. It's actually trying to get your music out there. And who's to say? Again, as Angela said, if people are saying, I want to be the next whatever, when I was a young fellow, it was like, people wanted to be the next U2, or that was a term used for years. And the thing is that there's no point in aspiring to be that. But when you see musicians like that, make a decent living by playing in certain territories right across the world, then you realise, yeah, you can make a normal wage doing that if you aspire to. The venues thing in Cork at the moment, right, I mean, it's great to be here in Collins and they have a great legacy for, 6, 7, 8 years, however long they're here. But, going back to when I came, there was like Sir Henry's, then there was The Village, then there was The Liberty, there was Nancy Spain's, there was, prior to me, there'll be a documentary coming out in about 6 months about the Ark, which was down by the train station. So there was this amazing venue which was basically a ballroom, as many early venues were, and like U2 played there, The Cure played there, UB40, The Beat, all the best bands in England played there in the early 80s. And like, this is amazing to think that this was going on in Cork back then. The irony being, again, it's perception. So people think, like I worked in Henry's for 5 years from about 1990 to 95, and people think Henry's was amazing. And it was an amazing space, but it was amazing. Like Henry's, ironically, was at the start, as someone described it, was dad rock. So the cutting edge bands of the day, None Attacks, Mean Features, I don't know if you're aware of None Attacks, they'd be one of the early punk bands, and then Mean Features would have featured a guy called Mick Lynch who went on to woohoo! Poor Mick, he died last year, an amazing character. But these bands actually were allowed playing the Ark, but they weren't allowed playing Henry's because basically it was kind of, it was dad rock basically. So, but then 80s, from about 88 when Sean O'Neill, a friend of mine, he was the manager, or basically he's the manager of Henry's, he had been in a kind of 80s pop band called Burning Embers. He took over it, he saw what Greg and Shane were doing in a club again, which was a great club at the time called Reds, and he brought them over, and the whole dance music thing in Cork boomed. Now, a lot of the bands then at the time were like, Jesus, what's going on here? You know what I mean? This dance music thing. And, and it was, and it kind of booked up kind of venues, because they went, hang on a sec, your man turns up with a few records, he's way cheaper than a band, a sound check for a DJ, how long does that take? Like, I don't know, 2 minutes? And I'm not being disrespectful, I DJ myself, but what I'm saying is that it's, it's not rocket science. But not the DJ bit, but the setup. but it threw the city into a bit of a no man's land. So then you had almost the ravers versus rockers, this this thing going on, and that's the way it was. But I mean, friction is a good thing in a city, you know what I mean? Like, again, when I came to Cork, it was like, I remember the first night I stayed in St. Luke's actually, and I was walking down to the city, and basically there was a smog sitting over the city. You were allowed to burn coal that banged out smoke or whatever, and Cork felt like that. I didn't remember much from English, but I remembered pathetic fallacy, where nature sympathises with human emotion. I was like, fucking hell, this place is bleak. But it was bleak, but Cork was bleak, depressed industrial city, as in Ford and Dunlop's had fallen in 83, and the whole city was on a downer. But the amazing thing was that from then on, 88 probably on, Henry's was this just, and the Village as well. And then came Nancy Spain's, there was Nancy Spain's was a venue on Barrack Street, some great bands would have played there, like Tortoise, Stereo Lab, Fugazi, blah, loads of great bands. But back to Henry's, there was just this buzz and there was an energy, and the reason was because basically everything was shit. So it's almost like, why does the best techno come from Detroit? Because everything's shit. There's nothing better to do. And in the same way, Cork was like that everything's shit. What do we do? We'll make some music. And that was the buzz, and out of that came the Franks and the Sultans, which were kind of, both of them were quite humorous. In a certain way, it became the tale that whipped them in a sense, because even though the Franklin Walters, the English magazines, the first 3 EPs, they said these are the best thing ever. 5-10 years later, they were saying, we're really sorry we brought the Franklin Walters to you, because what happened there was that these magazines get an editor every 3 years, and it's like, make some headlines, motherfucker, make some headlines, and that's what they do, But, sorry, I keep deviating from the independent venues. The point, the friend in Dublin in the 80s with the punk rock, what he was saying was that there was no venues, go out and find something. So the thing is that on that note, if you're a death metal band and you're calling Collins, they might, they mightn't get back to you. Reason being, as in, I won't get back to you if it was a death metal band. You have to look at the venue and see the type of bands they play and say, okay, they might fit in. You know what I mean? Like, there's no point in coming here saying we're a techno, breakbeat kind of band. Yeah, let's play Collins. Look at all the other techno breakbeat bands you have. So in the same way today, or was it yesterday, I got an email from St. Luke's, which is a church up on the north side. I don't know if any of you have been there. And I got an email from a Bon Jovi covers band. And it'd be great fun in the church. We're kind of going, cool, get an orchestra, But I was like, did they look at anybody we've put on? Because we don't, in a venue like that, it's a church, there's a massive amount of reverb. There's no point in putting on bands that play loud music, you know what I mean? It has to be, almost more acoustic, instrumental, orchestra, or solo or whatever. Not big drums, just doesn't work there. So, on that note, for everyone here that's in bands and whatever, and you're looking up and down the country, just look at the bands you like, whether it's, again, what Angela, and I'm sure they've lists of places and venues in other countries, but try to find the bands that you like, and where do they play? And it's not like, they played in a venue for 2,000 people, I'll get on to them. Again, I get that, whereby it's like every venue, if I'm looking for someone, I'll go, what size venues are they playing? And if they're in the 3 to 6, 700, you're like, you're banging around this right area for a venue that holds 400 people. But we get sometimes bands and they get on to us, we see your place, looks great, can we play there? And it's like, it holds 400 people. Have you played anywhere in Cork? We played our friend's garage, and it's like, great, well done, I'm sure it was fabulous, but again, on that note, you need to be able to show the lineage. So, in other words, find somewhere that they're accommodating or interested in your music, and, fill a place for 50 people. The best advertising for any band is the sign sold out. Then move up to 70, 80, 90, the Roundy's a great space upstairs, here is great space, and just kind of make that jump so that people can actually see that you say, well, I sold out, whatever, someplace for 40 people, then we did Collins, then we did, somewhere that's 120. I mean, on that note, there isn't a huge amount of venues, but, do that, do steps, because otherwise it looks like you haven't researched. For example, if you're trying to book a gig and you're on a tour and you're saying, we play Galway, cool, let's play Galway. And it's like, and you get onto, we say, I don't even know the guys, but I've just watched what they've done over the years and they seem to do great stuff. Kit Oak, which is now in Roisin Dubh, and they used to be in the Cellar. And it's like, there's no point in asking a guy or the lads, whatever, can you play there, when their website, tells you that there's 3 bands playing on that night that they've been advertising for 2 months. So I'm just saying, if you're putting tours together or whatever, kind of do a bit of research and just, and give yourself tons of time. Because the other side of it is, I see now as you get into the bigger bands from our end, I mean, I know people, for example, someone that I'm sure a few of us here are friendly with, Mary, who runs Sounds of Safe Harbour. I mean, she's talking to bands a year and a bit in advance. Now, they're big bands, you know what I mean? But in the same way, give yourself, don't be saying, hey, I'm in Galway in 4 weeks. Like, well, fucking done. You know what I mean? It's like, just, kind of plan things out, because before you know it, 3 months it's a week's time, So, I don't know where I am time-wise. Oh, time. Oh, yeah. Well, that's about it. I don't know, he could have been doing tea for ages.
You want a couple, no?
Yeah. But anyway, in conclusion, look, independent venues, what I say is, if you're there and you're in the band and you can't find a place, go find a back cave. Go find somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Take the punk rock ethos and early raves, they were great crack. People go break into a warehouse. I'm not advocating that, but in a roundabout. Well, I kind of am, because that's the other thing, is that, you're all very nice, and that's great, and I'm not advocating going out smashing windows, but you know, put a bit of punk rock into it. For example, the Sex Pistols, I'll leave you on this one, the Sex Pistols, you know, The Filth and the Fury, it's a famous headline, and you know, as someone said, or it was Malcolm McLaren, there is no such thing as bad publicity. So in some shape or form, try to get an angle on whatever, and if you can sell that to a venue that I've sold out a few small venues, we'd love you to give us a support slot. We don't play death metal, we're kind of, you know, acoustic, folky, whatever it is that suits what we do up there. Or, for example, Collins, you can see they have a certain type of band. I mean, maybe we're missing a straight up rock and roll small place at the moment, but they always come about again, you know, so there you go. Thank you.